those artists feel about their time at Barefoot. I mean, like one thing we do is every record that's recorded there, I put up on the wall and in our front lobby. And the rule has been and this is actually something, so Eric is married to Grace Potter, and this is actually something that Grace started. We had an open house when we were first opening up to the public, and Grace came in, and because we had been Eric's private studio for about 18 years.
Wow.
And my first job was to open it up as a commercial space and kind of oversee that transition. But anyways, we had an open house, and Grace put up a couple records, and just like 5 or 6 like little things, and the different things that have been done there, just to like put something in the lobby and decorate it a little bit. And it was a really great idea, and I saw how excited people were about it, and artists started asking about like, well, when does my record go up there? And we started filling it out, and basically I buy those records myself. And so to keep it kind of somewhat manageable, it's a new record comes out that was done there or that we were a part of. I buy an old record. So, two go up at a time. Otherwise I'd just be, spending an insane amount of money on vinyl. But
wow,
that's turned into a really cool thing. And what I was surprised about was like how excited like some of the larger bands that we work with are about, I'll send an email usually to everyone that was involved in the A&R team, everybody I've had a conversation with about the record, and say, thanks for doing this with us, happy release day, that kind of stuff. And then they're like, cool, where did our record go up? Like where is it on the wall? And that's been really cool to have like these artists that I really respect like reach out to me like that.
That's so cool.
And then I've had moments of like, getting to work with, lots of moments of like getting to work with heroes and be friendly with them. And I like a different sense of pride, I guess, too, that's been really cool of like, this is our place. And we all everybody there feels a real sense of ownership of it. And like, all of our efforts have gone into building it into this commercial space. And it feels a little bit different than just like a job at a commercial studio. That's been really cool. Or like seeing it in interviews, like we did the Chicano Batman record, and seeing in interviews where they like they always mention the studio and just like, and everybody there, and just like how those connections have been really cool. Like those moments of like feeling like we're doing something impactful that like really helps these people see their vision through, as opposed to just renting them studio space.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you guys still have that drum umbrella thing? Is that still? Yes.
A lot. I used to like introduce it when I would do tours and kind of and talk about it and be like, oh, we have this thing and check it out. And I realized like people that didn't have the same emotional impact as just like waiting until we walk over to the room and just lowering the ceiling without saying anything.
Wow.
That's definitely a fun moment.
We're gonna have to put a video, like a link a video in the show notes to like one of those videos of you guys doing that on the podcast.
It's a really cool thing, and like it's there's been a lot of moments of like drummers just tuning toms, or like trying to lock things in, and I just walk over and make a little tiny movement with the drumbrella, and all of a sudden it sounds perfect. And just having that level of control over, between that and baffling, and like, so the way our live room is set up, it's a big wooden floor, classic Hollywood studio live room. And we've added a few things over the years. The original build, it was very, very dead. This is a room, this is the 70s, and it was just thick blue carpet and giant curtains everywhere and cork on all the walls. We took down the cork, we put wood down, and opened the room up a lot in a really beautiful way. We added an ISO booth, and then a few years back, Eric, in the middle of the session, was like, "Hey, we're taking a few days off. I want to put a wall up, and in the middle of the room." And so he put this. You can see it on our website. It's a it's a semi-permanent baffle, I call it. It's just wood. It's not totally sealed. It doesn't extend all the way to the end of the room. There's a little pass through where you can, a little like kind of hallway where our mic locker and stuff is. But so there's still like tons of leakage between it, which was intentional. But basically what the end result of it was that the live side of our room is super live, and the dead side of the room where the drumbrella is and stuff like that is super dead. And so we're able to, or well, not super dead, but much more dead than it was. It exaggerated those two characteristics, adding the wall. And so you get these two sides of the room that are with, and like, Capitol Studio B has like there's one corner where the drums sound really great and stuff like that. And rooms have sweet spots like that, but we were able to kind of exaggerate those characteristics in our live room. And it's made this really cool palette where like you're working on something and you just moving the player in the room has this crazy impact. And I mean, you can hear it on like, if you listen to the Andrew Bird record that he did, My Finest Work Yet, that he did at Barefoot, that record was done entirely on the live side of the room with the artists standing super close to each other in kind of a circle, no one wearing headphones. And then like a good contrast to that is I did this record with Raylan Baxter where I had a lot of the band over on the live side of the room. The piano, Raylan was doing vocals in there, and then the drums were under the drumbrella in the dry side of the room, but with the door open, letting that leak into the piano, which was just on the other side of the wall, and then the guitar amps and bass amps and stuff were isolated in booths. But you can really hear the room in that, and you get these tight, punchy drums that also just have this big, huge, roomy kick that goes out in, and a ton of the drum sound on that record is the piano. Yeah, and so like the drumbrella and like that wall and everything like makes this really crazy, flexible live room that's like, when you know it well, you can do some crazy things with.
I guess from everything I'm understanding, Eric Valentine is like this like mad scientist when it comes to like audio and just like getting crazy sounds.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a guy who came up as a staff engineer. Most of the guys that work there now, most of us did, but his background is he was in a band and he recorded that band and he convinced the label to give him the production budget, and which is crazy. And that was, how he started producing records, was just doing it. And so he's never given a crap about any of the rules, any of the, anything. It's all just like, what do I want to do? What's going to make this record sound better? And every design choice that's been made at Barefoot or Undertone was all about solving a production problem. It was never and because we were a private studio, it was never what's going to bring in bookings. What do we need to buy that's going to look fancy on an equipment list? It was, we're doing a Queens of the Stone Age record. We need a bunch of fucked up mid-rangey sounding amps. Let's go buy them. And like every gear acquisition that was done was because the ISO booth that we have, we call it the Slash Box, because the ISO booth that we added that because Slash wanted to, he did a record with Eric that was, it was session musicians and guest vocalists and stuff like that on every song. And then he put together a band to tour that, or at least this is my understanding of it. He put together a band to tour on that, and that went really well. And he wanted to keep that energy of the touring band and make the next record with those guys and have it feel like playing live. And so they went to a rehearsal studio and practiced for months and stuff like that. And the idea was to just bring that vibe into the studio and keep the band was on in-ears. We built the band was on in-ears. We built a rumbler stage, just put a speaker on a platform underneath a platform for the bass player so that he could feel some low end. And then we built a booth for Slash so that he didn't want to wear in-ears. He wanted floor monitors. So we built an ISO booth so we could have PA wedges or floor monitors on the ground for Slash so that he could blast out and not leak into the band's stuff. And then we put his amps in the kitchen, which is on the back wall of that booth is the wall to the kitchen. So we put a pass through from there and put it out in the kitchen. And most studios wouldn't do something like that. I was just like, this is what we have. This is what you're going to do. And it's been really cool to keep that attitude and that energy, like as we're opened up as a commercial space. Like we had a session a while back where it was like, we had a ton of guitar amps and we needed to isolate the Leslie somehow. And, I didn't want to move the guitar amps into the kitchen. We didn't have a pass through for the Leslie cable. So there was a contractor building out Studio C at the time. And I walked over, he was building the booth for Studio C. And I walked over and said, "Hey man, do you have a Sawzall?" Borrowed the Sawzall, cut a hole in the wall, pulled the Leslie cable through in the middle of the session. And I walked back in like covered in drywall dust. And I was like, "Oh, okay, the Leslie works now." And they just looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, "You just cut a hole in the wall of your studio." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll patch it later. I don't care. Like, let's make this record sound good."
That's amazing. That's such a good story. So out of the box, man. It's great. Whatever is going to make the record sound good. And it's been really cool to like keep that attitude in a commercial space. Yeah. So I guess let's jump over to kind of like your workflow with artists and stuff. How do you find artists to work with? Like, how do you approach them?
I mean, it's a lot of word of mouth. When I was in Brooklyn, I didn't have my client base of like people that I knew well or that I had been working with for years. And I went to a ton of shows. I think there was a 3-month period where I went to a show every night until I started to get to know people. And people started recognizing me as like, why is this guy always at our shows? And started reaching out to bands. And I had managers at the time, and I would find bands that I liked on like blogs and the Deli and things like that. And they would reach out to, which the Deli is like a great resource if you're trying to like connect with local bands, is they just, they do these lists of like local bands that have followings and where they're playing and stuff like that. And I would just find bands that I liked on the Deli, say a couple things that I enjoyed about them, listen to their music, and ask my managers to reach out and email and be like, "Hey, we represent this producer. He likes your stuff. He wants to meet with you. And, you're playing a show tonight. He's going to be there." And so that would kind of like legitimize it a little bit more than me just like walking up at a bar and be like, "Hey, I'm an engineer. Let's make a record." But I would do a lot of that.
That's cool.
And then, with since being at Barefoot, it's been a lot. It's been back to old clients that I know and have been working with, clients that I did meet in Brooklyn, have flown over and done stuff. I'm mixing a record right now for a band from Brooklyn that I worked with. But at this point in my career, it's a lot of word of mouth and like, things like this podcast. And like, those are great ways to like connect with new people to work with. And, I'm fortunate enough that at this point in my career, I get people reaching out. They're like, "I like this thing that you did. Can you do, do you want to do another thing with me?" And
that's amazing.
And then I am blessed enough too that people know about Barefoot, and like, like the Billy Corgan thing was someone else that I had worked with at Barefoot, had worked with this band Sir Sly, and they were going to do some stuff with Billy for a few days, and they primarily worked at their own studio. The band primarily worked at their own studio and had for the entire time that they'd been in a band. And they're, I think a lot of like younger bands have like a guy that's in the band that's like a producer type